What is the most statistically improbable thing that has ever happened to you? Story 1. I ran up the rear end of a taxi twice on the same night. The first time I was going clubbing with mates. He locked his brakes and I drove straight up the backside. We exchanged details, etc. After the club we were driving back. I thought the cab in the front looked familiar. He locked his brakes again, I smashed him again. He gets out and turns white. You? What? Why? Edit, this was 20 years ago. Hey, wow, this reminded me of when I used to drive taxis. It was a Saturday night, and I had got a job to pick up a fare app, and I'll never forget it. From Ox Serpentine Ave Ballin to go into town. It's around 8 p.m. when I pick up this couple and take them to a restaurant in the CBD, and go off on my merry way taxiing around town. About 4 hours later, around 12:30 a.m., I had another 20 plus jobs, and drove around randomly for about 250 kilometers all over town. And now I'm back in the CBD. I lock my doors and roll down the passenger window a few inches, so I can ask folks where they're going, cause I don't want big fares taking me far away, and having to return empty, or have folks fighting over who got the taxi. As I'm stopped at an intersection, this woman runs up and asks to go to the other end of town to a nightclub. I say sure and let her in, and then I realize she's with a guy and it's the same couple from Serpentine Ave. Hey, trippy, funny, cool. We have a laugh at the coincidence and I take them to go clubbing and I taxi off. At about 4 a.m. I've done another 20 plus jobs, and another 200 to 300 kilometers all around town, and find myself in a line of taxis double parked outside a few nightclubs. I'm about 6 in line. People come out of the clubs and soon I'm first. When the back door opens and a couple jump in the back of my cab and say, Ox Serpentine Ave. Well, call me Rosie and frick me dead. I was and we were completely blown away. Once is a fare, twice is a coincidence, 3 times it's just some frickin' trippy weird but mother frickin' woo. Taxiland was pretty trippy in general for me. I've had some amazing times, girls, drunk bikies, etc. I've had a lot of crazy stuff happen to me in my life, but this was about as statistically improbable as it gets, at least for me. Even 2 times as trippy as heck, at least in my opinion. I'm guessing where you were taxiing was fairly big, and the fact that you did that many jobs before getting to them again is so weird but kinda cool. I guess it really is a small world after all. Please tell me you guys became friends or something afterwards. Story 2. I won a Frosted Flakes sweepstakes competition about 10 years ago. I was a kid and my mom filled out the form that was on the back of the box and sent it in, and ended up winning an all expenses paid trip to California, a PlayStation 2, and a buttload of money amongst other things. I always thought sweepstakes were a scam and companies never followed through, but it turns out there actually are winners. I was sitting on the couch with my 2-year-old son eating Frosted Flakes out of the box. He was naked, as toddlers tend to be. Look over and he's rubbing the Frosted Flakes on his wiener, then eating them. I yell, "What are you doing?" And his response to the look of horror on my face was to grab all of the pieces around him and ferociously rub them on his wiener and eat them before I could take them away. I never thought that story would be useful outside of using it to embarrass him during my speech at his wedding. I'm really scared to know the stories my parents will tell about me at my wedding, but at least I can happily say I never rubbed food on my wiener and then proceeded to eat said food. Story 3. The work I used to do required me to carry a lot of keys. At the end of my shift every day, I would go to hang up my keys on a cup hook. But as I entered the room, I would toss them over to the board with the hooks, trying to get them to land on the hook. And every day the keys would miss and fall to the floor. I would retrieve them and hang them up and sit and do my paperwork. One day at the end of my shift, I was a bit later than usual, and the supervisors were in the room. Again, I tossed my keys and they hooked. All of the supervisors were stunned, but my direct supervisor said, "I bet you couldn't ever do that again." I grabbed the keys off the hook, walked over to the door and tossed them again. And again they landed on the hook. And in the 2 years of working there, that was the only 2 times they were caught. Man built up enough luck points and cashed them all in that moment. If you didn't get a raise after hitting them with a double hook, they should all be jailed immediately. Story 4. I got pulled over by the police because my car and the car in front of me had the same license plate. And wow, this blew up. Sorry I'm late. I was sitting at lights behind a wee black Vauxhall with the police car behind me. Next thing I know, the police are asking us both to pull over. We both had the same license plate. Turns out that both cars were registered at the same dealership on the same day. A clerical error had led to both getting the same plate. Months later, we were both sitting at the same traffic light and the police are there to see it. This happened in Glasgow, Scotland about 10 years ago. Imagine if this didn't happen though, and one of the cars got stolen or something. Story 5. I was teaching ESL in Korea, and we went out one night to a local bar that had a monthly open mic night, where a lot of us foreigners would gather. I got chatting with a random white guy at a bar and asked where he was from. He said Ottawa. I was like, no way, I used to live in Ottawa. Whereabouts in Ottawa did you live? He answered Sandy Hill. I once again said, no way, I had a car stolen that was found there. His face goes slack. Was it an 88 to 91 Honda Civic? Yes. Yeah, I think that was me. Let me get your drinks for the night. Too long didn't read. While traveling in Korea, I met the guy who had stolen my car 4 years earlier in Ottawa. That's gotta just be karma catching up with him. I mean, at least he offered to pay for your drinks though. Story 6. I threw an orange at this bully's bike as he rode away, and it bounced once so perfectly that it dislodged his chain and the bike abruptly stopped and he was thrown off. He stood up a bloody crying mess, but oh boy, I was a hero. Edit. To everyone saying I was the bully, there was some backstory to this. I was over at my friend's house when this kid, Paul, comes over as well. Now, Paul is a bully, so we're just hanging out in my friend's backyard when Paul runs around back and starts basically insulting us. My friend went in to get his man, and that scared Paul. I was not so decent as to be patient, so the above transpired. And it was orange because Florida. How does one thrown orange have enough force to dislodge bike chains? That's gotta be some genetically modified orange or something. Story 7. When I was at university, I would often get a tad ride after a late night out from an old man nicknamed Grandpa. He had Grandpa on his tax license and had business cards with Grandpa on them, etc. He would always give you cheap rides and come whenever you called. Anyway, 4 years or so passed without me getting a ride from him. I had heard rumors that he had died, which was quite saddening. About a month or so ago, a couple of mates and I were waiting to get picked up by a taxi when we decided to tell them about the story of Grandpa. So eventually I finished my story and our taxi arrived, with none other than Grandpa at the wheel. Oh my god, the return of the king! Story 8. In the middle of making an omelet, I answered the door while holding a whole egg. It turned out to be my new neighbor asking if she could borrow an egg. The look of confusion on her face when I produced one on the spot was only matched by my own. She took it and left without saying a word. It was super weird. You should have reached behind her ear and pulled out the egg magician style. That is one heck of a missed opportunity. Next time a new neighbor moves in near me, I'm going to carry by my person an egg, a cup of sugar, and a jug of milk, just in case. Might want to carry some salt too, just to be sure. Story 9. I dropped my toast once and it landed butter side up. The only conclusion is that you buttered the wrong side. A scientist named Dr. Carl actually did some investigation into this. Turns out the average height of a table means that a piece of toast knocked off a table or bench will almost always land butter side down, because it only has time to complete a half rotation. If you eat your toast on top of the refrigerator, however, you have a much better chance of it landing butter side up. Were you eating toast on top of the fridge? Story 10. Was working a wine banquet back in college on a nice sunny afternoon in a wide open field with no trees. Pretty much everyone was gone and we were wrapping up after a long day. I yawned and the only bird for miles pooped right in my mouth as she flew by. The fricker. That and the brain aneurysm that I had. About a 1 out of 25,000 chance of surviving. But I'm still here looking for that goddamn bird. I've been saving a bottle of X-Lax just for him. Caw-caw. I really want to be there to watch this showdown. It sounds like it's going to be legendary. Was the brain aneurysm a result of the bird poop though? Either way, I'm glad you made it. Story 11. Once walking out of a grocery store, me and a buddy did that pew 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 thing with our hands and said something pretty stoned to some guy who was about to step into the parking lot, and he stopped for half a second to glare at us. In that half second, some jerk freak driver sped by and would have smashed the guy. We all did a double take and went on our ways. You shot a man to life. Story 12. I drove to the park to go running, using my cell phone as GPS. When I was done, I put my phone on the top of my car and spent a few minutes stretching. Then I got in my car and drove home. On the way home, driving about 35 with the windows down, I took a turn and the cell phone slid off the roof of the car and into my open window, bouncing off my arm and landing in my lap. I never told anyone because I didn't think they'd believe me. That phone case must have some heck of a grip on it. Where can I buy one? Story 13. I was in perfect health at 23, but had a stroke. Pretty harsh one. I was in a coma for 2 days. When I woke up at the 8,000 employee hospital, they told me I was the first guy ever at my age to come down with something like that. They ran me through every test they had for 3 days, and concluded I had a blood clot in my leg somehow. Sent me back home and 3 weeks later, it happened again. That's terrible. Jeez, I hope you're okay now. If they found out about the clot, why did they just send you back home? There's gotta be a lawsuit in there. Story 14. Whilst on honeymoon, I bumped into my best friend from high school. In Venice, Italy. I hadn't seen him for 14 years. He lives in Australia, I live in England. Twist, you married each other and were on the honeymoon together. If that's true, they probably did a lot of bumping into each other. I see what you did there. Story 15. I stood on a venomous snake by accident but escaped unhurt because I stood on its head. Once when I was surfing, I stepped on a stingray's head and very narrowly jumped before he whipped his stinger forward to hit me. I felt like Spider-Man the whole day. Great, now his theme song's gonna be stuck in my head the rest of the day. Story 16. A guy with the same name and same birthday as me died. I was doing a job at the law firm where his will was held on the day of the reading. They freaked out and asked me to confirm a bunch of details to make sure I hadn't died. A bunch of details. So, you're dead? Nope. You sure? Yep. Story 17. My brother and I were playing Exciting Bike 64 in our younger days. There's a game mode where you climb a super steep cliff. The first time one of us ever reached the top, we both unanimously whispered Mufasa. It scared the poop out of both of us, and I cried out of fear for probably 10 minutes. I think the word you're looking for is simultaneously. Story 18. This has got to be unlikely. I was on holiday at Universal Studios, Florida with my brother-in-law Nick. We're both Brits, when a random family rushed over, started hugging and kissing him and speaking Spanish. Nick was very confused, until he heard them call him Chris. It turns out the family are Peruvian and lived next door to Nick's identical twin Chris, who moved out to Peru 4 years earlier. I'd love someone to calculate the odds of that. I'm not a math guy, so I'll let someone else do it. Story 19. Found a random orange on the street while walking to school. I picked it up and tossed it down a driveway and it landed right up against the car's back tire. When I was walking home, the car backed out of the driveway, and as it drove over the orange, it sprayed all over me. I wonder if the orange held a grudge and paid the owner to wait to leave until you came back. That'd be just as likely to happen as that story was. Story 20. Picked up the phone to call someone only to hear them talking while I dialed their number. They had called me at the exact moment. Was weird. This one actually happened to me before too. Scared the heck out of me. I thought someone hacked my phone or something. Story 21. I've been the millionth visitor to a ton of websites. How do you even find that out? Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more videos to come, or else this spider will be in your bed tonight.